And just like that, it's the start of another week. Let's see what else they're going to tax. Taxing the air yet? I remember years ago. Hello, everybody. I'm Russ Kane. This is the Midday Show. Welcome. I remember ages ago there was what was it? It was a play or was it a movie? Can't remember. I think it started off as a play, right? And they taxed air. Yeah, they taxed it. I'm waiting for that. These geniuses. I'm looking forward to the farmers demo. Well done, farmers. We are 100% behind you. Fantastic. Come to London and show these Westminster idiots exactly what it is to be a farmer. No food, nothing. That's what happens, right? That's what I'm saying to you. That's what I'm saying to you. Anyway, politics aside, you used to know him. You used to love him. He's been gone. It feels like he was filming the whole of David Attenborough's Asia show. He's been gone so long. Neil Long.
Hello. Welcome back, Neil Long.
Oh, Jesus Christ. What are you wearing? What?
It's bright, isn't it? I bought it in Barbados.
Did you?
Yes.
Did it
Too bright for you?
Did it occur to you? Well, I'm wearing my usual colour of black. Did it occur to you they just wanted it off the island?
No, not at all.
No.
I've already had the Mickey taken out of me at work this morning.
I can't imagine why. Why?
I was rocking apparently the only gay in the village vibes.
I'm the only gay in Tolworth. Anyway, you were away. Did you have a lovely time?
Yeah, it was lovely. Thank you. I went to Venice.
Rejuvenated. You went to Venice.
Yeah.
Fab.
It's amazing. No cars, all canals.
Yeah, it is. No matter how beautiful you think Venice is, the pictures, the movies don't do it justice. It's even better. It is.
And the gondoliers. Oh my goodness me, they're clever.
You know what they should do, don't you? They should do a light operetta about that.
But apparently the gondoliers, they all look like Beetlejuice, so they wear the stripes.
Yeah, they do. And you didn't say their name twice, did you?
And Graham, yeah, you've got it. The song they get, I don't know the original title of it, but it's the Just One Cornetto, give it to me. They get asked to sing that, probably the original version all the time. So no, didn't sell any cornettos. They don't actually do that. They don't actually sell cornettos and pass ice creams to each other as they gondolier past each other. Graham,
you're not going to tell me that was made up for an advertising.
Oh, Solo Mia, that's right.
Solo Mia. Right, let's just say hellos and then get our fabulous guest on. You're going to love her.
I'm looking forward to talking to this one.
You're going to love her. Much more your cup of tea. So let's go to Philip Harling. Good afternoon to you, Philip. All the way from America, the northeastern United States, our favorite guy.
Asa Don Brown, we love you, man.
Dr. Asa Don Brown. And we've done with Graham Pack's hilarious. Did you know Graham Pack can be very serious? And he sends me emails, and they're really very intellectual and serious. And I just say to him, it is almost impossible to believe. And I say, Graham, you've obviously got a brain like a planet. Why do we get the arse end of it? And instead of this genius, that's what I said. Asa Don Brown, by the way, Asa posted some great pictures the other day of his family. He's got a beautiful family out there. Beautiful family, probably the greatest family. Great family, great guy, great man.
Oh, don't.
I will. Well, if you run around with no clothes, Kimmy, this is what bloody happens. I told you, you're going to Tesco, bloody get dressed.
You really got to act your age.
Yeah,
stop running around naked.
Come on, stop it now. It's the last time they let her into Lidl. Kimmy Lashmar, wish you better. Let's hope it doesn't go to your chest. Boom, Tish, thank you very much. I'm here all week.
Oh, really?
Chicken. Right, yes, I don't give
Let's get our lovely guest on, shall we?
Now, this guest is via my lovely mate, Julia Champion, queen of many PR things. And she finds all these. I don't know where the hell she finds them, but she's got like a whole raft of very clever people who do things that Neil loves and kind of, for me, go, okay. But we like her. I've had a little chat this morning. Please welcome Jess Parkinson.
Hello, Jess.
Oh, hi. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure.
How are you?
Are you kidding?
Yeah, I'm really, really good. Thank you. Yeah, really nice to be here.
Well, you're saying that now, Jess. In half an hour's time, Could be another story. Yeah, don't.
I've had a little cyber stalk. I've had a look at your website, and I'm intrigued by what you do. So I'll be asking lots of questions.
He's so intrigued. He's put on his very, very gay T-shirt just for you.
I love that. I need a bit
Jess,
of
don't
that.
stop.
You
For
see,
Christ's sake.
it's
I'm
the fact that
done.
it hasn't
Bye,
got
everybody.
sleeves.
Thanks. Have a good.
Yeah,
He's had enough.
he's had enough. Yeah, he can go
I've
away.
had enough of that.
Oh, you
God
put me in
damn.
the top left.
No, never happens, baby. That's like Anton Deck. Now, Jess, Neil and I have had the pleasure of going through the 800,000 pages that your PR company sent to us. It's endless. Tell us, she's very thorough, if nothing else, old
Oh,
Julia.
she is.
By the way, when you next see her, when you speak to her, the first thing you have to say to her is boobtastic. That's all you have to say. And don't make any other reference. Just go boobtastic.
It means nothing to me either, Jess. Don't worry.
No, but it'll mean something to Julia.
All right.
Trust me.
I'll do
You're
it.
in safe hands, Jess. Very safe hands. Right. Tell us all about it. I don't know what that is. By the way, you know everything about body. You know everything about it. You know Starmer and these other people running, pretending to run the world. What is this? Not the I love you, not the Kylie Minogue thing. I'm talking about they're holding their hands in a very interesting kind of, I don't know, is it a satanic sign? What the hell is it?
Is it like this?
It's like this. I think it's like that.
It looks
Like
like a
I can't
Machiavellian.
say I've noticed. Can you give us a demo? I can't say I've noticed.
Well, I've done it as best as I can, Jess. I don't want to be put on the spot, quite frankly, because it's Monday and I've just had a call from a funeral director and they forgot to tell me a timeline. So I'm somewhat busy. No, so anyway, let's get on. Let's go up to, is he in Scotland or is he in London? Dave Sleep. Hello, Dave. Barry Allen, otherwise known as The Flash. Savior of the universe. Afternoon to you. Anyone I missed out? No, that's it. Right. Okie dokes. We're ready. Tell us all about yourself.
Oh, okay. Where to start? So yeah, I am.
Well, we can skip through O levels and A levels.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Don't
I
bother with
didn't
that
really
bit.
get any. So,
Oh.
I am a breathing specialist primarily, but I'm also a yoga teacher and a personal trainer. And I'm in London, and I don't. You're in London, right?
You betcha.
Fab. So do you know Gymbox, brand of gyms, sort of every.
You lost me at the word gym.
Okay. Well.
So the answer is
we
no.
might not get on very well then.
We're going to get on just great. Don't you worry about that.
So Gymbox is a gym chain, but it's kind of cool in the sense that they bring out lots of new and innovative classes, and they've got all sorts of stuff going on. I'm telling you, there would even be something for you in there. But at Gymbox,
Jess, trust me, there won't.
There will, I promise. I'm going to convert you.
Jess, unless it's a single malt or a Cuban cigar, I'm not up for it.
They have done a class where there was beer involved.
No, I don't drink beer.
All right.
I give up now, Jess.
Yes,
but I'm interested.
Keep going. Come on. This is a test of your fortitude. Keep breathing. You're the breathing expert. Come on.
Yes, so I'm head of the holistic and the mind category at Gymbox, and the holistic category is everything that's got yoga, Pilates, all that sort of well-being stuff. But actually, in October last year, we were the first gym to ever launch classes specifically for mental well-being. So we have classes. Yeah, so we've got classes focused on anxiety, reducing stress, helping sleep. Julia was particularly interested in that one. She was like, "Teach me how to sleep."
She can't sleep. Keeps me awake all night.
Because she's so busy. She's just trying to get these jobs.
She's only got you as a client. There's nothing else. Rest of the time she's in Lidl.
But yeah, no, so I'm very proud of that to be I created that category, and that we're the first people to do that.
That's brilliant. I've never heard of that before. And now
really
you've said it, I'm thinking, how come that's the first time I thought of that? It seems brilliantly obvious.
Great ideas. That's the great thing about brilliant ideas. Everyone goes, why didn't anyone else think of that? Because they're clever. That's why.
Yeah, they've been going down well as well. And I think, that you've got a certain crowd of people that go to a gym, and it's definitely interesting. For example, we've got a journaling class that happens. And yeah, I mean, it's very
what class?
journaling. Yeah. And the feedback from the class is incredible. However, we're kind of having to really pull people in because it's kind of such a different vibe in comparison to, you know, pushing yourself like crazy in a gym class. Which one do you choose? You know?
None of
So
them.
what's the difference mainly between a just for physical fitness and for mental well-being? How would they compare and contrast?
Well, to be honest, I mean, they really are one in the same. And I think that's why we wanted to create the classes, because ultimately, if you do want to be, you know, whatever goal you might have fitness-wise, in order to achieve that goal, you have to have a certain level of mental well-being or mental fitness as well. So I think that's where we've come from. They wanted to coin it mental fitness, you know, kind of to fit in with the gym vibes as well. But, you know, they're one in the same. But, you know, one day you might go to a class that's really intense. The next day you might be doing a class focused on sleep, and they're going to benefit each other, is the idea.
How difficult, I've got a question for you. How difficult, you came up with this idea and it's a terrific idea. Great idea. How difficult was it to sell it in?
You know what? Not difficult at all to sell it in, like at all. Gymbox was so, you know, they were the ones that said, look, we think we want to do this. And I said, oh my gosh, let's do that. That's incredible. So really not at all. The hardest thing is to then get your existing members who already have a certain relationship with a gym to then come to these classes that are potentially quite different. But we found that we've been pulling in a lot of new people to Gymbox who are going, oh, actually, I'm here because of this well-being offering, you know?
Interesting. This is coming in from Graham Pack. At my nephew's wedding in the USA in September, my wife's yoga teacher came out before the ceremony to get us to breathe. Jesus, how did you make me flight? The Americans were into it. What do they do? Hold their breath for 11 hours. The Americans were into it, but the Brits thought it was barking.
Well, we're quite cynical, us Brits, towards these, what people might consider, careful of the word I use, new age, alternative. Some people might think it's a bit hippy dippy. I don't. I know the profound importance of breath. I've read about breath work. I've read books on it. And it's so much can be done with it. And, you know, big advocate for mental health as well. So I don't think that's hippy dippy at all.
That's so interesting that they say that the Brits thought it was barking. That's so, because I don't know, I think you're right though. Like
I think we're a bit cynical or suspicious of anything coming from, oh, that's so American. It's that kind of attitude,
because most of the stuff that comes out of there is garbage. That's
probably California.
So we have, not from the Midwest, but everything from California. You think, how many drugs are you actually on?
Well, there's some techniques that I use with pretty much every client that I work with, and that unfortunately the name got changed because it was kind of westernized. Have you heard of Andrew Huberman? The Huberman Lab?
Yes. I've watched his videos. He's a brilliant man.
So he's fantastic.
So excited.
I know, I love it. No, he's fantastic.
Lit up.
And in yoga, we have a technique, I don't know whether you've ever heard of it, called Yoga Nidra. It's yogic sleep. And the technique is basically takes you to the state between wakefulness and sleep, and it gets you really deep rest. It's a stunning, beautiful technique, and obviously it's from the yogis. However, Andrew Huberman said, well, we're going to call this NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. And as a yoga teacher and yogi myself, I was like, oh no, they've just, you know, taken this amazing old practice and called it something else.
There you go. That's what Dave's saying, you see.
But then the other side of that, absolutely, from Dave. But the other side of that is a lot of people wouldn't do it if they thought that it was yoga.
Well, this is it. I think ever since, I think Oxford University really helped bring mindfulness to the masses because they saw it was valuable enough to study that it could really make a big difference. And when they started, you know, doing their tests on it, I think Ruby Wax got involved and all that sort of stuff, which may or may not help.
Please don't mention her.
Okay.
Please don't mention
if
her.
Oxford University think it's important enough to study, it is. And that's what our Western minds, we like the scientific explanation, don't we? Anything of hippy dippy energy, California, we're not too sure of it. I don't mind it, but many people do. But you bring a bit of science into it, and it's a lot more valid to our kind of Western, and if I may say, cynical minds, maybe.
Well, as Dave said there, you know, actually, I really agree with you, Dave, there on the that this it isn't new.
No.
And it is kind of sad that we have to get the scientific backing to believe it. But isn't it incredible, though, that actually these ancient yogis, they actually already had this knowledge, and you're thinking, how did they know this stuff? I mean, it's incredible.
There was no MRI scans, there was no brain scans back there. You couldn't, alpha waves, gamma waves, delta waves. They wouldn't have known any of that, and yet it's come down the generations in the.
But isn't it interesting, Jess, that we, not particularly me, but because I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, but the Brits go, oh, we want to know what the science is behind whatever it is, right? And yet science has led us right into the abyss at the moment. And I go back to COVID, follow the science, really. And then they look at the science and it was bullshit, half of it. So it was like, which do you want?
Well, there is such thing as bad
science. Do you want
science?
The science, which is deeply flawed, or do you want something which has been going for thousands of years and seems to work and isn't invasive? See?
Yeah, and I think
I'd rather go with that. I'd rather go with that.
Ultimately, you've got to weigh up both sides of it, don't you, and decide, okay, what's right for me, what works for me, and there's so many techniques out there that, for example, with physiotherapy, there is actually very little evidence to say that manual therapy, like massage and stuff, actually really does anything. However, I get it and I feel better, or you get it and you feel better. So who's to say that it's wrong, right?
See, it's really interesting you say this again. I can't bear it. I won't go to a spa.
Fair
I
enough.
can't bear any of that. It doesn't do me any good whatsoever. But what will surprise you, because you probably think I'm thinking this is a load of nonsense, which I don't, by the way. I'm just messing with you. Is that back in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, I took up transcendental meditation, and I went away for a course, and it stayed with me for 30 years or whatever it is, and still works when I ever think about doing it, but it still works. And the other thing, which is why I was so interested in getting you on, because we've had other guests. Neil's talks about it a lot because he's much more serious than I am in this area, but we've had other guests with the breathing stuff. And I was using the techniques that our guests have suggested, when you're getting really stressed. I'm under a lot of work pressure at the moment. Not this is fun, proper pressure. And the breathing really helps. It helps.
It's a game changer. And the thing is,
I want to ask lots more about
Off
this.
you go, Longie. Go on.
I did hear about a bloke, Russ, that took up your technique, and he didn't need any anaesthetic in the dental chair. He could transcend dental medication. Thanks, I'm here all week.
Oh, Jesus.
yeah.
Come on.
Oh, Jess, I am
So, breath work.
Well, I told
really-
you, within half an hour, you'd be thinking, Julia, what the hell?
I enjoyed that.
So, thank you. I've got more.
Oh, Christ.
So, breath work, super powerful. Okay. Some say that the breath is our closest link to our higher self, soul, inner being, whatever you want to call it. Some say that. But super powerful on a physiological mind-body level. Why? How does it work? And there's many different techniques for different things, isn't there? You might want to amp something up or calm something down, and it can all be done with breath, right?
Exactly that. Yes. So
over to you.
You'll have come across, I mainly teach what we call sort of functional breathing. And that is, you're breathing for every day, dealing with stress, becoming more resilient, helping you sleep. If you suffer with anxiety, techniques that can actually really help you when it comes to your overall well-being. However, you also have the other side of it, which is you might have come across with Wim Hof or conscious connected breathing. Now, conscious connected breathing is kind of got a big name for itself at the minute because it's very experiential. So it's an experience. So for example, we recently did a workshop at Gymbox with a guy called Josh Connolly, and he does these emotional release breathwork sessions. There's a whole big other conversation to be had about that, but he leads a session where eventually you get to a certain point and you actually scream. He makes you scream.
Oh, dear.
Now I know I know it sounds ridiculous, but don't take it like that. It actually is very, very powerful. However, like I say, there's a whole other area to explore with that. But they can be very like uplifting, and it can be extremely emotional. You can move through things. There's that side of it, and it can be very beautiful, that as well. But like I say, the side that I primarily work on is that side of, can we get more energy? Can we feel more relaxed? Can we actually get better sleep? And the interesting that Kimmy's just said there about one nostril from the other. We know that our breathing, left side and right side, are linked with our upregulation and downregulation of the nervous system, and we actually can control that. So there's lots of different styles. I mean, Wim Hof as well, obviously, they're more hyperventilation techniques, which isn't necessarily bad, but if you have anxiety, we probably don't want to be hyperventilating more than we already are.
No, we don't.
Yes. So what I mean, in my understanding, what we want to be is in parasympathetic part of our nervous system as much as possible. Sympathetic, fight or flight, is meant to be just for real short bursts. But most of us, or a lot of us, are in there 90% of the time, all the time. And it needs to be the other way around. We need to be in parasympathetic, because I believe personally all healing of all things happens in parasympathetic.
Oh, it does.
Your body is not in healing mode when you're in sympathetic.
On behalf of my lovely audience, explain what you're talking about.
So the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, to keep it simple, we've got two parts of it. So your parasympathetic is your rest and digest. That's where it basically all healing, as you were just saying. That's the good one, if you like. It's all healing. Everything happens, digestion, relaxation, the heart rate lowers, all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. The sympathetic nervous system's your fight and flight. Now, you don't want to think of that as not good, because we do need it. It keeps us alive, you know.
In short bursts. In
short bursts, but we need a regulation. That's why people often talk about regulating your nervous system.
Yeah.
Because, as you just said, a lot of us, because, you know, we're getting up crazy early, we're instantly reaching for coffee, then we're on our phones, we're living in a stressed state quite a lot. Hey, I've got a nice coffee here as well. I'm not saying it's bad. But what I mean is we're doing a lot of things all the time that are upregulating us. Then we're watching the news and it's really hard to watch.
We don't.
Or we don't, you know. But
we bloody don't, thank you.
But this constant barrage of stuff.
Yeah.
And we end up stuck in this fight and flight, which means that the parasympathetic just can't do its job. And that is what then leads to stress-related symptoms, burnout, fatigue, and of course, illness of all.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think sympathetic, and tell me if I'm wrong here, because you're the expert. You know, you walk down the street, someone jumps out on you with a knife or something, you need to go into that fight or flight pretty damn quick. And it needs to be, you know, instant like that instant reaction. But have a row with your partner or the kids are playing up, you don't want to be going into that. It's overstimulated so much of the time. And like you say, we're there for so much of the time that we can't access the healing stuff, and we need so much more of that. If we flipped it around, if we were in parasympathetic, or the good one for layman's language, not saying the other one's bad, but just for easy language, rather than the bad one, if they were reversed, how much time we were in each, we'd have a different world. I'm absolutely convinced of it.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have a world that, you know,
where nothing would get done.
Yeah,
no, I wasn't going to say that at all.
Good. I'm glad because nothing gets done when you burn out either.
I wasn't going to say that.
Okay.
Listen, Mr. Venice, I wasn't going to say that at all. What I was going to say, what I was going to say is this: it's no accident that this is the way we are. If you think about the Daily Mail, for example, the instruction from the Daily Mail for all their journalists is to leave the reader angry or to leave the reader worried. Leave them angry or leave them worried. And if you read that particular newspaper, I've got no beef against the Daily Mail. I'm just explaining how these things happen and affect us in life. If you read all the articles, and you think, I'm seeing it through two lenses. Either I'm going to get to the end of the article and be angry, I'm going to get to the end of the article and be worried. And everything then gets translated through that prism. You think of the way we are being controlled, divided. I go onto Twitter and within 45 seconds, I'm seething. I have to come off. I can't stay on it because I get into such a rage about it. It's all designed to churn us up. And it's designed to churn us up because a population that's unstable is much easier to manipulate. That's basically the overarching thing. So anything that can be done to calm everybody down gets my vote. That's my point.
Would stabilise a lot more.
Brian is right. Hello, Brian Kingsford.
Yeah, can I just do a quick shout out to Brian? I'm not going to say on here because out of respect, but he's posted it on Facebook and he's going through a terribly difficult time right now. And Brian just sent in the absolute best. I'm sorry.
Speaking of terrible times, I can't help but notice the subtext from Paul, and I don't know what's going on. He keeps saying, terrible things, and I don't like it. Please don't hint. If something's going on and we can help, we're happy to help. But it's kind of like, got an important meeting, can't tell you more. Well, don't tell me at all. That's kind of my view.
Tell us more about the power of breath work. Tell us more.
Well, I think what you were saying there, it's kind of like nice to think that we actually do have an element of control, because we can't control that stuff, that that horrible division, and like you said, it is there. But when we go, actually, I have something that is within me right now that I can control, and it's a little bit more complex than that, of course, because if you do have racing mind, if you've got trauma, if you've got things that are going on for you, it can be very difficult to tap into that stuff. But there are many ways for us to calm down without going, oh, I have to do this breathing technique. You can, getting out in nature, getting outside, doing little bits of exercise, even if it's just a short walk, spending time with people that make you feel like you're in your parasympathetic, that help you be in that relaxed state. If we're spending time with people that absolutely stress us out all the time, it's not going to be very helpful.
Boundaries.
But breath work. So we know that slowing the breathing rate is one of the best things we can do. It really is that simple. When we are sitting at rest right now, we're probably breathing between sort of 12 to 25 breaths a minute. I mean, it can be higher than that sometimes for people. But really, if we reduce that breathing rate down to 6 breaths a minute, that would be, for example, breathing in for 3, breathing out for 6, or breathing out for 4, breathing out for 6, kind of around that 5.5 to 6 breaths a minute. We slow the heart rate down. We stimulate the vagus nerve, and that nerve is the one that's responsible for all rest and digest symptoms. It's one of the cranial nerves, right?
Now, we hear a lot about the vagus nerve in these circles. There's a guy I've heard about online, and he stimulates the vagus nerve through sound healing.
Yep.
Using sound and resonance, I would have thought, and vibration, I would have thought, to stimulate that. But so it's stimulating that vagal nerve. That's what we need to be doing. Vagal nerve, everybody.
The vagus nerve is all to do with safety. So if you feel safe within yourself, and safety means psychological safety, like I just said, being with people that make you feel relaxed, being out just watching the birds or whatever you do outside that makes you feel like, yes, I feel calm. That stimulates the vagus nerve. So music, playfulness, breathing, yoga, movement, and fun. Having fun is great. And the vagus nerve basically is in charge of how resilient we are to stress. So if that vagus nerve is strong, we have more resilience to stress.
You've hit on something really interesting here, because resilience,
Graham,
in the way
stop
most
it.
people are. Sorry,
Graham, I'm telling Graham to stop it.
Resilience, most people, the way they perceive it, it's something you have to fight for, or sometimes the more shit that's thrown at you, the more resilient you become. But what you're saying is essentially the parasympathetic opposite. Our strength comes from our allowance, our surrender, our yielding, our stimulating of this rest and yes.
Yeah.
So that yes, that it's like that. What's that old sort of Zen saying? It's the bamboo that bends in the wind is better than the brittle branch that breaks, or something like that. It was said much better by Confucius or whoever said it than Neil.
The best way to sum it up is this, which is part of my belief with the fellow that I'm going to be speaking to directly after this show, my podcast partner, Mark Collin.
He's a good lad.
We do a podcast called Walk the Talk, The Hero's Journey, episode 63, just recorded. And one of the first things he said to me is, put the sword down, don't fight the river. And when he said it to me, I thought, I don't know what you're talking about. And he says, stop fighting the river with a sword. Put the sword down and just go with it.
And let the river take you. I think Jung said, what you resist persists as well. In other words, the more resistance, the more you push against things, the more you kind of put it there because you're pushing against it. But if you just allow it to be what it is, and that's why, from this point of view, it doesn't really matter that much what's going on in the world, what's going on in the American vote, because we've all got the power within ourselves to do this. It doesn't really, it kind of, if you'll pardon the pun, it kind of trumps what's going on in the outer world.
Let's look at this. This is important. By the way, you wouldn't know, Jess, but 6, nearly 7 years ago now, I started a radio station all devoted to mental health. So if you think I'm flippant, you couldn't be more wrong.
Love that.
It cost thousands, by the way. So I put my money where my mouth is. Let me just put this up. I'm going to move you across because everyone wants to see you and not me. And this is from Paul Claridge, who's been with us since day one. Russ, my physical issues are related to my cancer, skin and bowel, and my ileostomy. My mental health has been impacted by this. I don't know how he's kept going because this has been going on for years. By my ongoing treatment and not knowing what's coming next, absolutely. This triggered anxiety and depression, hardly surprising. This is where the yoga and breathing, along with the support of a few very close friends, has helped me. There you go. Proof is in the pudding.
And what I would say to you, Paul, just sending support, but all healing happens in the parasympathetic nervous system. So any techniques you can do that gets you into that parasympathetic, the body knows how to heal itself pretty much. Brilliant that our Western medicine is, and it is brilliant. However, the body's intelligence will trump it every time. But it needs to be allowed to do it, and we don't allow it to happen when we're in sympathetic, when we're in stress, when we're worrying, when we're angry, when we're scared. But flip it over to parasympathetic, that kind of surrender, that yielding allowance of well-being will make all the difference in the world. And you don't have to do anything. It's not a doing thing, it's a being thing, isn't it? Don't. A lovely phrase I heard, Jess. I hope you like this one. Don't be a doer. Let's just do a beer.
Can I add to that as well? So something really interesting.
Oh, come on, Russ. It was great. Go on, Jess. You were saying.
This is the really interesting thing. So my first breathing qualification that I did was something called the Oxygen Advantage. And I don't know whether you've heard of his book, Patrick McEwen, amazing Irish guy. I do recommend his books. He's fantastic. But what he said in that first training is that kind of our breathing and a lot of the issues we have are to do with what's called the biochemistry, which is basically the gases in your blood, oxygen, carbon dioxide. Won't linger on that too long, but then as I started to learn more and I went into more in-depth techniques, something that has been proven is that it's actually more to do with the emotional side of it than it is to do with that biochemistry and the stuff going on in the blood.
Oh, now, tell us more.
Yes, so to make the point that whatever's going on inside is actually more likely influenced by your emotional state than it is the other way around. So, for example, if a lot of people do this, and I've got family members who've done this as well. We were taught to repress emotions, weren't we? We were taught to hide emotions and to, look strong or whatever you want to call it. We do now know that repression, and as you just said there, the surrender that we weren't doing has been damaging us. It makes us ill.
I know people that put it in stronger terms, and they say that if you allow yourself to fully, there's a wonderful meditation teacher online called Emily Fletcher, Ziva method, I think. She's part of the Mind Valley team and does her own thing as well. Anyway, she's one of her techniques is to fully feel all the stuff that's been repressed over the years, maybe not a million miles away from the scream therapy, because when you're fully feeling it, then it can be felt and moved out. And then you've got a clear slate. And she says your dreams are waiting on the other side of that. Literally, but you're right. We're taught to repress. Maybe it's a British thing, stiff upper lip. Yes, everything's rosy.
It's not a British thing. It's not a British thing, but it's particularly, look, the reason we started not this radio station, because this is something, but the original radio station was that the biggest cause of death for men in the United Kingdom is suicide. From the ages of 18 to 45, the biggest cause of death in the UK is suicide. Not cancer, not car crashes, not heart attacks, suicide. So that's why I came up with the idea initially of starting a thing. I thought, that can't be right.
No.
How can that be right? That's ridiculous. So here's the thing. I'm going to ask you, Jess, as Dave says. And by the way, Dave is the head of a huge company called ANA, which is just brilliant. They've been so supportive to us, and he's a terrific guy. Repression equals depression. Absolutely.
Nice, Dave. Yeah,
he's a terrific man. Now, here's the thing. I understand that if you repress stuff, it's all right. The best analogy I was ever given about this, and you are welcome to use it, Jess, because you're so charming, is this. If you buy a fresh chicken, right? You go to Tesco, Little Sainsbury's, you buy a fresh chicken and you put it in a drawer in a bedroom and you forget about it. You think it'll be okay. And eventually it'll start to rot and the stink will permeate throughout your entire home. You think you've dealt with it, you put the chicken in a drawer and the smell you won't be able to get rid of it. That's the point. Now, so that's kind of where I am. I understand that. You don't deal with stuff. But when you've looked at it, it still comes back. You can look at stuff from 50 years ago, 30 years ago, yesterday. You've still got to kind of process it.
Absolutely.
And say that doesn't affect me anymore. So
with trauma, what's really interesting with, like you say, it's all right to feel stuff, but actually your nervous system adapts and learns. So if you've gone through particular trauma where you didn't feel safe and it happened, day in, day out, whatever, your nervous system begins to find safety in that feeling. So for example, I have actually had people do breath work with me and the breath work has triggered them. Even though the breath work is calming, it's meant to be calming. It's the 6 breaths a minute that we talked about. If their nervous system is taken out of a state that they've deemed safe, and because it's had to adapt to survive, and I think that's a beautiful thing to remember, is that your body and the nervous system, even though it might not feel it at the time, its only aim is to keep you safe.
Yes, and it becomes limiting. And maybe there are times in life when it needed. Maybe that was the best thing available that kept you safe at the time. But as we mature, begin to grow, start to ask the big questions, become a bit more self-realized, eventually that stuff will have to be cleared if we're ever going to be free, right? Work through it. And there's many wonderful techniques, many wonderful people like yourself helping people do that. And the analogy I like to use is actually based on a true story. There was a war and the soldiers, even after the war was over, were still going to the battlefield reporting for duty. And that's how I kind of see past trauma. It's that unconscious mind keeping you safe. And what it took was for someone they held in authority, the sergeant in this case, to say, men, thank you for your service, but you may now stand down. So it's a bit like saying, thank you for what you did, unconscious mind. I accept that was the best available at the time, but I've got a better alternative now. You may stand down. And that's kind of the effect of these wonderful therapies that allow you to process this past trauma and finally be free from it and move on, I'd guess.
Let's have a look at this. This is from Graham. Where does homeopathy fit in, as it seems to be more mind-related than the pills and potions taken? How would you answer that? By the way, I haven't got a clue.
I don't know much about homeopathy. It's an alternative medicine, right? And I think it's to do with diluting certain substances. I'm really sorry, Graham. I actually
I think
don't
it is.
know.
My godfather used to be into it in an amateur sort of way, and I think homeo doesn't that mean one? Like, isn't that the root of one? Like homosexual, like homeopathy means one. So they take something like it and dilute it right.
In other words, what they used to do, even in the early part of last centuries, is that you would take arsenic, which now you'd go, what the hell? You would take
But
arsenic
I
to
think
cure
they do.
certain
I could
things.
be wrong here, but I think they do have an arsenic in homeopathy, but it's diluted so much.
Yeah, obviously, you're not taking a big whack of arsenic and
Well,
ending
no, of
up
course
in
not.
a
You might be
Agatha
taking one
Christie.
molecule out of a zillion.
Well,
And some
whatever it
people
is.
say, well, it's so diluted, it's BS, it can't work.
What
And there's
precisely?
some people that are quite
Yeah.
vigorous in their defending their opinion that it's just bullshit. But for some people, it seems to work.
But you saw Azadon Brown's thing, that if you have a placebo and it works because the mind is the biggest pharmaceutical company.
And did you know that red
in the world.
placebos are more powerful than blue ones? True story.
And you end up like Keanu Reeves. Anyway, red pill, blue pill. Look, I always think it's always summed up by John Lennon, not a man I particularly liked, but whatever gets you through the night. So whatever works for you, works for you.
Yeah.
And it's not for others to say, well, that's rubbish. Well, if it's working for somebody,
Yeah.
it's working for them. That's the end of it. You know?
So when someone triggers, when you're in one of your sessions, Jess, what do you do? How do you move them through that? If that's not a trade secret.
No, not at all. So, I mean, people need to know this, because you could be in bed listening to a breath work and suddenly think, why am I feeling panicked? Why am I, and so we need to know that. So if you start to feel like you're getting panicked or overwhelmed, or your breathing is getting really, really heavy, reminding yourself that you're safe is one of the biggest things you can do.
Right.
And I know that sounds so simplified, doesn't it? Just saying that. But if you remind your body, tell yourself what you're doing. So I am breathing and I am safe right now. I am breathing and I am safe right now. Something so simple. You are saying out loud what you're doing. And you can even, something that a lot of people do.
But that's really clever. That's really clever, because you're associating something so natural, so normal with safety. Yeah. I'm safe because I'm breathing. That's like saying I'm safe because I've got a nose.
Let me ask you this, because I'm a meat and potatoes guy, right? Supposing you had, let's just pick some random things, but I think this is universally affects a lot of people. You had real financial issues, you're going to lose your home, or you're having a terrible time at work, you think you're going to get fired, or your relationship is going down the toilet. Can that help? Because you don't feel safe, because life at that juncture for you, no, Neil, let me finish. That life at that juncture isn't safe. It doesn't feel safe because it's not safe.
Yeah.
But then arguably you would need to be in parasympathetic even more then. When you need that connection the most, ironically, that's when we all run away from it. We try and work harder and probably make it worse in the process by trying to bat our heads against a brick wall to find solutions that are not there. They're here in the parasympathetic, in the allowance, in the healing thing. And it's not easy to tell someone who's in a situation they just need to relax, but they just need to relax. And also it's proven scientifically that when you're in the fight or flight, your prefrontal cortex shuts down. It's the amygdala, the emotional center, that's operating. And through experience, you don't make good decisions from that place. Just don't. That's when I've made my worst decisions. So I hear you, Russ, but I stand by that answer. And I'm not saying I can always do it myself either.
When you bought that shirt, was your amygdala working?
No, but I think.
Thank you. I rest my case. No further questions.
But I think the Barbadian rum.
You may step down. Thank you, Your Honour. That concludes the case.
I think the Barbadian rum was.
Yes, I bet.
No, I think that is a really, really good point, though, Russ. Like, it is obviously going to be a lot harder to access that parasympathetic state when you're going through stuff like that. And I think that just acknowledging that actually is really important. And actually,
Absolutely.
acknowledging I'm going to really struggle to relax at this moment. However, I'm going to give it a good go.
I go with that. That's right.
Yeah, because it's also equally unhealthy to go, I shouldn't be feeling this way at the moment. Or judging yourself for how you feel. All feelings are allowed, but it's always worth knowing that, no matter how cloudy the day is, doesn't mean the sun's not there. It's just somewhat obscure.
And there are so many resources that you can use for free out there. And, there's recordings online. There's all sorts of things where you can take even 5 minutes. And if you put into YouTube, I feel triggered 5-minute meditation, it would come up. And there's something there for you. So I would say that even if you feel out of control, there is always something that's accessible, even if it feels like it's not in that moment.
And that's the thing, it does feel like it's not, because of the logical bit shut down. It feels exactly like it's not. And you have to kind of, I don't know, fool the amygdala.
Well,
I don't know.
Back in the old days, and I think this was the precursor to everything that Jess has been talking
back in the old days,
about
we
for
just
the
go
last
down
45. Well, you're not a million miles away, because if you're facing a problem and you think, I can't see my way through this. With me, sometimes it's when I'm in the middle of the new book, writing the new book, and I go, oh, I'm really stuck here. And the more you stare at the screen, the less it's happening. So take a break. And so really, that was the precursor to all of this information that we'll be given this morning, is that, take a break, walk away for 5 minutes, go have a coffee, whatever you want to do, and then come back.
Yeah, you're breaking state.
That's the point. That's the point.
A little analogy I like, Jess, see if you like this one as well, is we talk about like healing and healing trauma and stuff. You got to say, back to a chicken analogy now. You put a chicken in a grill pan and cook it, and then you want to wash the grill pan. Now imagine that we're the grill pan, but for it to come out sparkly, all the gunk has to come off first. So you put the grill pan underwater, all the gunk comes up, but then it's nice and sparkly afterwards. Is that a fair analogy?
Yeah, and I think actually if you can remember that, because the gunk will put you off at first, right? All that stuff that rises and your thoughts are pinging all over the place, and it can actually make you want to stop. But actually, if you just trust that moment, trust the process, you'll get to the sparkly bit.
And I read a lovely quote, which I've got to share here, through one of my favourite teachers of this sort of stuff, called Alan Cohen. I think this is brilliant. First, we were fine. This has got so many levels in it, this little statement. Then we were defined, and now we're becoming refined. Now, I really love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, that's really nice.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, we were fine, and then we were defined. Something defined us, or we were defined. We weren't fine anymore. Double meaning. And then we became refined. We became fine again by refining.
Okay.
I like it.
Me too.
That's all that matters. You're our guest. If you're happy, the show's a success. Now then, Philip Harling, being very honest, I had a really bad bout of depression some 20 years ago. It lasted several months. I can't remember what brought me out of it, but now I've learned to apply relaxation techniques which work and have prevented future attacks.
Good.
Fabulous.
That's great.
Fabulous. And thank you for sharing that, because people don't talk about depression at all. No, great. All right. I'm giving him one. Wearing that top should be just fine. Okay. Come on.
Jess, look away for a moment. Sorry about that.
You don't get that on Radio 4.
You don't get that on this morning.
Thank God. Thank God. What do you get? God knows, floaty summer fashions and how to get Beachbody ready in just a week. Anyhow,
I like my floaty summer fashion.
Yeah, God. Yeah, I really wish I hadn't said that. One of the things is, just let me ask you this. All right. Americans versus Europeans in this way, because I lived in America for quite a number of years. Okay. Something, and I'm really generalizing. Asa Don Brown, you're going to go raving mad in the northeastern United States, but bear with. Is this something happened in their childhood, right? and it defines, Neil, seems to define them for forever. I'm not talking about being molested. I'm not talking about paedophilia. All right, that's on a whole different level, and I don't want to talk about it. I'm talking about something happened, and it defined. And I just think, yeah, it happened. You can't turn the time back. Now, look at it, examine it, and go, screw it. And then you've got to move on. I think the British way is not to carry all that shitty baggage with you forever. Very difficult to do. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's important.
I know people that have done it though. I could name people that have been through the most horrendous trauma. One of which we used to work with, Russ, actually. I won't name one here out of respect, but I'll tell you off air afterwards. And she now does an awful lot of work in the trauma field. But it is possible to turn...
And the guests that we have, you're absolutely right. Some of the guests we've had on Walk the Talk, The Hero's Journey, their early years are jaw-droppingly, terrifyingly awful. Yeah. I mean, I'm not even going to go into details.
There's a phrase called the healing corner, and there's a term called post-traumatic growth as well. We've heard of post-traumatic stress, but there is also a thing called post-traumatic growth. And these incredible people who I edit podcasts for, that's how I know about it, are now putting their work out into the world to fight against, let's say, sexual violence and things like that. You know, but we're talking pretty full-on stuff. But
horrendous
it is possible.
stuff.
It is possible, and all these tools help. All these tools, they're all part of it. It's all available to us, and they're all part of it, aren't they? Why did you get into this, Jess? How did it all start for you that you became a breathwork coach and yoga teacher?
Well, so I actually used to be a musical theatre performer. So that's kind of how I ended up. I know, jazz hands.
Come on, jazz hands. Claire Sweeney, jazz hands.
That's how I ended up in London. And as I'm sure you're probably aware, or most people are aware, that you kind of need to find something alongside acting careers and whatever, just because it's so up and down. And I actually started out as a personal trainer and fitness instructor. And then I think I discovered yoga not that far in, and I actually came to yoga from a very physical perspective first, because I didn't fully understand it, and I think a lot of people do. And then I know everyone says it, but it's true that it really did transform me as a person, my mental health, my well-being. And I think from there, I just started to enjoy the journey. And I found breathing and the breathwork coaching stuff, which you do in yoga anyway, but the sort of much more in-depth stuff I discovered about 3 years ago. And so I've just sort of gone all in on that. After the pandemic, I sort of decided that I was done with performing for now. You never know.
Really? But
never
why?
say never.
But why?
Once it's in your blood.
First of all, what were you in? Go on, name a couple of shows.
So I was in School of Rock on the West End.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Good.
And I actually, I was quite lucky because I decided to leave that show just before the pandemic happened, and which meant that I kind of established this new sort of career happening as we went into it. I was in the Netflix special Jack Whitehall. I was his singer at the end of his Netflix special.
Oh, brilliant.
So why have you given? So you were successful.
Kept that quiet.
You were successful. Why did you decide you didn't want to do it anymore? Because you're obviously good. Because the competition is enormous, as we know.
So the goal was always my huge goal was to be on the West End. That was my one big. I want to be able to do that.
Sure. Yeah.
And as I came out of the show and contemplated, re-auditioning and whatever, I then had started to do much more. I'd got the job at Gymbox as the head of their category there, and that was quite a big deal for me at the time. And then when the pandemic happened and I started going, full in on well-being, breathing, all this, I think it just felt like the right time to let it go. And it was very hard decision, because I think a lot of it was my personality. You attribute a lot of these things to who you are.
Yeah.
But genuinely, I really think it was the right time. I achieved what I wanted to achieve, and I love this work that I do now so much. And ultimately, I perform every single day anyway.
Literally, you're performing
Well,
now.
yes,
I got that. I got that.
you're being refined. You're being fine again at something else. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's like the next evolution, if you like, maybe.
Yeah.
The interesting
So congratulations on your West End success. That's great to hear.
Thank you.
It's interesting though that sometimes you set a goal. Your goal was to go to the West End. I have different goals, but your goal was to go to the West End. You achieved that, and what is really interesting about you is you got there and you look, okay, well, I've done this now. Now I'm ready for the next thing. Because sometimes our whole life is geared towards, you think, if I get that, everything's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get it and you go, oh, come on. I've done that. Now what?
Yeah.
You know?
Which is the importance of enjoying the journey and being happy on the way.
And I think that I'm a very different person. Like that, you know, when I was in that show, I was probably more in that sympathetic, upregulated, stressed state quite a lot of the time. And you know, your whole life is basically based on achievement.
Of course it is.
You know,
It is. Totally.
And as much as some of that is important, you know, I've got things I still want to achieve, and it's important to have that, but it shouldn't define you. And it becomes like a constant struggle and a battle and a competition.
But if you think about what you were doing, right, need I remind you, because I've been there myself. So you've got to go for an audition. So you've got to beat everybody else who's up for the same blooming role. Yeah. Then you get the part, right? Then you've got to get on with everybody in the company. Then you've got to please the director. And when you've done all of that, and you've ticked all of those boxes, so the stress is enormous, then you've got to please the audience every night. And the insecure performers, because I've done it, right? The insecure performers come on, oh, I was where I go. No, if you look at it like it's a job, I'm really happy to have this job, and the curtain comes down, you can switch off. That's how you survive.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I think about everything that I do. It's a job.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. It's a good question. If Cameron McIntosh, let's wave a magic wand, as we do on the Midday show. If Cameron McIntosh came knocking on your door for a big production, would you do it?
It really depends. If it was a lead role.
In a movie about breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
Maybe, but I've got no desire to do it right now. But if it was a lead role and it was 6 months, hell yeah.
There you go. As Longie said earlier in the show, never say never.
Yeah.
Never say never, because you never know.
Never say never.
I always thought I'd never go back to the stage if something interesting came up. I might, but I don't have a desire. I don't have a desire to do it. I'm very satisfied with the 3 different strands of my life that I'm doing. It makes me very happy.
You do the stand-up, to be fair.
But I do it when I want to. That's the difference. I don't do it because I have to. I suddenly think, right, I've got this reservoir of material that I want to get out.
Yeah, and that's the key.
And then I'll do a show.
Not because
I'm not doing a show to make a living out of it.
No, do it because you want to.
I do this because I love it. And I get to meet very interesting people. I don't do it because I need to do it. I do this because I really enjoy it. I love the interaction with our guests. I love working with Neil, and I love the interaction from the audience all over the world. I think it's fantastic. You know, can't buy that.
So if people would like to learn more about you, Jess, happyhealthywithjess.com.
Yeah, and Happy Healthy with Jess everywhere. You can find me on socials under that name as well.
Okay.
I think you're terrific, by the way. I think I love your positivity. I love that, and I like.
Yeah, we can feel the good vibes coming through the screen.
We do. God, we've done thousands of interviews, and well, I don't call them interviews; they're conversations. They're not interviews because I think an interview is trying to trip somebody up too often. I think it's a chat, and you've got that lovely energy. It's a real thing. It's a real thing, the real thing. Well done, you. Give our love to Julia Champion, or whatever you are. And good luck. If you ever want to come back, you are terribly, terribly welcome.
Oh, thank you. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Lovely to meet you, Jess.
Wow.
You too, Neil. Thank you, Russ.
Yeah.
Thank you for the questions, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, been really a really good conversation. Thank you, Jess. Lovely to meet you.
You really resonated with people everywhere. Okay.
Thank
Until
you.
then, bye.
Bye.
Lovely. Isn't
Wednesday.
she great? What a
She's
lovely
great.
person.
What a top girl.
Charming.
Wednesday, going to be talking, had him on before, my philosophical, cerebral, and very funny comedian friend, discussing all things, including taking, a bit like we were here, taking skills into other areas, transferable skills. We're discussing Wednesday with a comedy buddy
That
of mine,
is
Colin
so
Etches.
interesting. Oh, I love that. That's
So-
why, in all seriousness, Longie, that is why I am loving my work as a celebrant. Because it combines, I thought, what can I do that I'm vaguely good at?
It combines everything you're good at. That's your next evolution, if you like.
It was very
It's
good.
the
Now,
it's the
before
best
you
of
go, because I've now
performing,
got to do
writing,
another recording.
stuff you do well.
But before you go, how great was Venice? Tell everybody.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really lovely.
Yeah, really, really beautiful place. No cars. Only canals.
Yeah. Well, when Sadiq Khan floods London, it'll be the same.
There you go.
Okay. And on that note,
On that note,
Longie will be back on Wednesday, and I'll be back with the gang and Chantal and maybe Phil or maybe not. And with Jonathan Baz on Friday. Until then,
we look forward to
stay
it.
out of trouble.
Good afternoon.
Everybody.
Thank you for tuning in.
Bye. Bye-bye.